Every April, millions of people wake up to a number in their bank account that wasn't there the day before. No birthday, no bonus, just the IRS handing back money that was theirs all along. This year, the average refund was $3,276, up about 11% from last year, roughly $350 more than most people got in 2025. The government has already pushed out over $324 billion. In a few weeks, that's a real number. A flood of cash hitting American bank accounts basically all at once. Within 30 days, most of it's gone. I'm Maya. Today we're talking about why a sudden chunk of money can be one of the more dangerous financial events in a person's year. Not because the money is bad, but because our brains aren't really built to handle it well.
Kesia is 28, lives in a one-bedroom in Columbus, works in healthcare admin, makes around $47K. She's been carrying $4,200 in credit card debt for 2 years, the slow build kind. A car repair, a rough winter, a family situation. She's not careless with money. She budgets, packs her lunch, knows what her rent and electric bill run. She's the kind of person who has a rough idea of what she spent on coffee last month. But every April, something shifts. The refund lands and her brain quietly moves it into a different category. The credit card is still there. The emergency fund she keeps meaning to start is still missing. But right now, there's $3,000 in checking, and something in the back of her head is saying this money is different. It came from outside her regular life, so the regular rules don't quite apply. Behavioral economists call this mental accounting. People sort money into psychological buckets based on where it came from, not just how much it is. Money that arrives unexpectedly gets treated differently than money you ground out over a week of work, not because the dollar changed, but because the story around it did. Tax refunds land right in this zone. Technically, it's your own money being returned to you. It was withheld from your checks all year. It was never the government's. But it shows up as a surprise, so the brain files it the same way it'd file a gift. And when something feels like a gift, spending it feels justified. Hal Arkus, a psychology professor at Ohio State, studied this for years. His research found that people consistently spend windfall money more freely than earned income, not out of impulsiveness, but because they perceive it as less connected to their labor. That's the mechanism. That's what's happening every April. A 2026 Omnisense survey found that 59% of Americans plan to spend their refund within 30 days. A NAF study found nearly 1 in 3 plan to spend it within the same week. The top categories, dining, entertainment, electronics, weren't things people had been deliberately saving toward. They were impulse calls made in the warm glow of having more cash than usual. Meanwhile, 55% of Americans are carrying credit card balances just to cover essential expenses, not luxuries, groceries, gas, utilities. Both things are true at the same time. People going into debt to cover basics, then spending a lump sum on things that aren't basics. That's not a character flaw. It's what happens when nobody ever teaches you what to do with money that feels like it came from nowhere. Kesia knows she has credit card debt. She knows her emergency fund is empty. She knows the way you know a dentist appointment is overdue. Accurate, uncomfortable, easy to push down when something more pleasant is available. The refund creates a window where taking action feels possible rather than painful. Most people are never taught how to use it, so they do what feels natural. Pay one bill, buy something they've been wanting, feel okay for a couple weeks. Then April becomes just another month. Here's the math that actually does something. $3,276 broken into 3 deliberate pieces becomes 3 separate decisions instead of one emotional one. 3 decisions made before the money moves with a clear head produce something a single impulse purchase never can: structural change.
50%, about $1,638, goes toward the past, the highest interest debt in the account. Not because it feels good, but because carrying high-interest debt costs money every month. Paying it down doesn't just reduce a balance, it ends a recurring monthly cost. Every month after, the money that was going to interest stays in the account instead. This is the highest guaranteed return most people have access to, better than most investments because you're eliminating a rate you would have kept paying indefinitely. 30%, about $982, goes toward the future. Not stocks, not retirement, just a savings account, sitting still, labeled emergency fund. The reason it matters is behavioral. Without accessible savings, the next surprise expense, car repair, medical bill, plumbing problem, lands on a credit card, which means the debt just cleared in step 1 starts rebuilding itself the next time something breaks. The emergency fund breaks that loop. It's not glamorous, it doesn't grow fast, it just prevents one bad month from undoing 12 good ones. 20%, about $655, is for spending. Guilt-free, no justification required. A weekend away, something you've been putting off, a dinner that costs more than it should. The first 80% of this money already did real work. The balance is lower, the cushion exists. This last piece has earned the right to just be spent. There's no version of good money management that requires permanent self-denial. The goal isn't to stop spending on yourself, it's to spend in the right order. Kesia's co-worker, Simone, did something like this 2 years ago, not because she's some kind of finance person, but because her older sister walked her through it over dinner on a napkin. Half to the card, some into savings, keep a little to actually live. Simone thought it was almost too simple to be worth doing. By the following April, the credit card was gone. Not smaller, gone. Her emergency fund had handled a $400 car repair without any borrowing. When that year's refund landed, there was nothing waiting to take it. She didn't tell Kesia about this like it was some revelation. She mentioned it the way you mentioned something that worked so quietly you nearly forgot to notice. No scramble, no choosing between bills, no month that felt like it was trying to break her. Just a year that was steadier than the one before. That's the thing finance content can't really sell, because stability doesn't look like anything. The debt you didn't accumulate shows up nowhere. The emergency you absorbed without borrowing leaves no record. You only see the effect in months that pass without incident. Most people already know roughly what they should do with extra money. Pay down the debt, save something, don't spend it all. The knowledge isn't really the issue. What's missing is the pause, a moment between the refund landing and the money moving, where the decision is made with a clear head instead of an emotional one. Not, what do I want, but what is this for? The IRS sent that check because you overpaid all year. It was your money in January. It was your money in March. The only thing April changed is that you can see it as a single number instead of something distributed quietly across 12 paychecks. The number changed. The money didn't. Perception is the whole game. It always was. By May, Kesia had moved the $1,638 to her credit card. The $982 went into a savings account she actually named in the app, Do Not Touch. She spent the $655 on a weekend trip to Pittsburgh to see her college roommate. Long drive, good food. She ordered something at dinner she wouldn't normally have and felt no guilt about it because by the time the plates arrived, the debt was already lower and the cushion already existed. The balance didn't disappear after one refund. It dropped by nearly 40%, which meant the interest charge the next month was smaller, which meant more of her minimum payment was hitting principal, which meant the card would be gone, at this pace, in about 14 months. She didn't feel like she'd fixed anything. She felt like she'd made 3 reasonable decisions with money she already had. That's accurate. That's also what financial stability is built from. Not one big reversal, not a windfall that fixes everything at once, just months that move in the right direction, toward a version of our finances that doesn't need a government check to feel okay. The refund comes again next year. It always does. The question is just whether you have a plan when it gets here.